Okay, and we're back with Barb for our next segment about her living and dealing with epilepsy. Tonight we're going to talk more about you as an epileptic and your dealings with society. Um, okay, first of all, I'm doing this with a newer camera, so if it moves around a lot, please bear with me because I'm kind of trying to figure out a good place to hold it and not drop it at the same time.
The light's not on, is that okay?
That's fine. I can still see you.
Okay.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
All right. We see the dog. We got the dog. That old dog. You may go now. Okay. So how are you today?
Not too bad. I have a bit of a migraine, but the weather's changed, so that's to be expected.
You find, as you said before in an earlier segment, that the weather definitely does seem to have or to play havoc with you when it changes.
Oh, yeah. But hey, par for the course.
Butt hay.
But hey.
What the hell is butt hay? Never mind. Um. So let's talk about Barb and society. Back in high school, we had a course called Man in Society, so I thought I'd just kind of go with that title and just call it Barb in Society. Okay, so how are social events for you?
Well, social events can be a little bit difficult just for the fact that when dealing with seizures, a lot of the times they come up unexpectedly, so a lot of the times you have to cancel. So it makes it a little bit difficult.
Are there things about social gatherings in particular that you don't like or make you uncomfortable?
I find with me lately that, and this is a new development for me because I used to be quite a social person and quite outgoing, that, and I don't know if it's a medication or if it's part of the epilepsy itself, but I find that large groups of people um, make me quite uncomfortable. That it's almost um, a scary thing for me, sort of. I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's an intimidating thing almost. Not just social situations, but any large group of people, whether it be a crowded mall or um, being in a enclosed bus, or say like a subway, for example, or anything enclosed or any large setting with a lot of people. It just seems to make me very uncomfortable or even agitated sometimes. So sometimes I tend um, to just when I do get into a social situation like that where there's a lot of people, I think that I tend to kind of sit off to the side a little bit, maybe, just to make myself feel more comfortable.
What is it about that makes you feel comfortable? Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot now.
I think just because I don't like to be right in the middle of the group of a lot of people. And again, I think it's just the busyness of it and all the stimulation. Um, a lot of stimulation seems to bother me. Overstimulation. Whether it's a lot of people moving around and a lot of people talking all at once. Whether it's loud music or loud TV and loud music going at the same time. Um, Even being in the house and having the TV going and then loud music going on outside at the same time, it just seems to really agitate me. So again, I'm not sure if it's actually part of what's going on in here or if it's part of the medication or maybe part of both.
Now, before you spoke about in an earlier segment, that is, um, that because of your epilepsy, you have often had to cancel plans that you've made to get together with family and friends. When when you have to cancel these plans, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like you've disappointed people, or that they won't understand why you're canceling it?
I do. I feel really disappointed. Um, it almost seems to become an expected sort of thing, especially lately, as time goes by and as the seizures have progressed and gotten worse and worse and worse and more frequent. It almost seems like, though nothing has been spoken, that it's just almost like an expected thing with me. And I think what the hard part is about it is it's not really talked about. Nobody ever communicates. It's not discussed really, and there's no communication about it. And of course, when there's no communication about things, there's no understanding. Um, Barring for a few people, and there are a few people that are exceptions to the rule who need to be mentioned, um, of course, so I don't want to mention any names on here, but there are a few people who are exceptions to the rule who do understand and who do speak to me about it and we talk about it. But in general, the majority, I'll just call and say I can't make it, and that's that.
When that happens, what kind of response do you typically get when you have to cancel plans?
Okay.
That's it?
Okay.
Do you think that
Hopefully we'll see you next time.
are they understanding or supportive, or does it seem that there's a factor of indifference there?
I don't I don't know how to qualify supportive. Um, to
Well,
me, supportive would be questioning why you couldn't come, why can't you come? You haven't been around for a long time. You're always canceling plans. Is something going on? Are your seizures getting worse? What's going on with your health? Do you need any help? Is there anything we can do? Um, since you can't be here, would you like us to come down for a visit? Maybe we could come see you next week and stop in. Um, Maybe we could call you. Um,
when you don't get that kind of response, how does that make you feel?
Very isolated.
Does it make you feel like they don't care?
No, it doesn't make me feel like they don't care because I'm surrounded by, and I'm blessed to have wonderful people in my life. It makes me feel like that there's just no understanding and no
If
education about what's going on with my situation.
Well, if they cared, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here for a moment. But some might argue that if they cared, they'd take the time to ask you those questions. Ask, why can't you make it to whatever engagement it is? They'd ask how your seizures are if they're getting worse. They'd ask how you're feeling, and they'd suggest either an alternate time or they'd suggest coming to see you.
Well, in all fairness, there has been certainly situations where people have said, we can come and get you. But it hasn't been a case of where it would make a difference where you could come and get me and pick me up. I'm just not well enough to leave the house. That's what you're not getting. If I can't come, it's not because I can't come. It's I can't come because I'm not well enough to leave the house. I'm in bed because I've had a huge seizure. So you coming to get me isn't going to make any difference. What you're not understanding is that I'm in bed because I've had a massive seizure.
Do you think that some of them might just think that you're just being antisocial? That you're canceling simply because you just don't want to be with them, and so by the same token, they begin, even if it's subconsciously, to reciprocate?
think so.
That they treat you differently because they think that you're treating them differently.
I think so. And I don't think that it's me alone. This is not a personal problem that just affects Barb. This is definitely a problem that affects everyone, again, with not just epilepsy, with any um, disorder, with any illness that is akin to epilepsy, anything that's like it. Anything really that would put you in bed, that would limit you to do things, to be able to be mobile. Um, it would be the same problem for anybody like myself, with any who's suffering from any kind of disorder. So it's not just me, but it's a problem that affects many people, and it's a matter of misunderstanding.
Has anyone in your life, friends or family,
That's why people get depressed. That's why people get depressed and they don't leave their house. And they build a wall around themselves. And it just becomes a problem, a bigger problem.
Has anyone in your life, friends or family, do they call you regularly to see how you're doing, or if there's anything that you need doing that you can't do for yourself?
I have certain people in my life that are that I can count on to regularly do that, yes. And I'm very blessed to have them. On the other hand, there's other people in my life who I haven't heard from for a long, long time, who make promises to me that they'll call me back, and then I haven't heard from still months later. So it goes both ways.
How do you respond if somebody were to tell you, well, if you don't call anybody, they say, well, you don't call anybody, so if you want to get phone calls, you got to give them.
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time. And my response to that is very simple. It's very difficult, not only for myself, but for people in my situation and people like me who are on heavy medications that affect their emotional and their cognitive functions and their behavioral functions, and who depress their brain, and who are also having multiple seizures daily to function daily, let alone being able to pick the phone up to call people. That's the last thing some days that they're going to be able to do. I have problems sometimes even remembering people's phone numbers, and it's not an excuse. That's not taken into consideration sometimes.
A family member of yours once said to you that you have to ask if you want support. That if you want your family support, you actually have to ask for that. How does that make you feel?
Well, that's a very good question. And that actually was what led me to do these blogs. But I honestly don't think, in my heart of hearts, that when you put it out there to those closest in your life that you are facing brain surgery, that you should have to ask for support. I know personally, myself, that if anybody around me in my circle had put it out to me that they were facing brain surgery and that they were scared, that I would go to them and reach out to them. It wouldn't even be a question. So I don't think that it's unreasonable for me to expect a little bit of support. I don't think that I should have to pick the phone up and say, hey, would you mind giving me a phone call or writing me a note or calling me maybe once every couple of months just to check in on me and say, hey, how you doing? Because, it's been 6 months and I haven't talked to you. I'm just wondering what's going on at your end of the world. Because, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but this is my 4th brain surgery, and the last one didn't go so well. I almost died. And it's a pretty freaking scary thing for me right now that I'm facing. And it was a pretty big decision for me to decide that I was going to go ahead with this. And even after telling certain people that I was going to go ahead with this, the usual people that I've always been able to count on, bless their hearts, have given me support. But where's everybody else? Is it asking a whole heck of a lot?
Could you really count them as friends if they're only going to be with you when things are going well for you? That they will only show their support and their camaraderie when things are going fine for you, but if there's a chance that you may need them for support, emotional or otherwise, that they seem to vanish.
I'm not pointing my fingers at friends. I'm not pointing my finger at anybody.
Well, when I say friends, I should expand that term to mean acquaintances.
I'm just putting it out there in general, just as a specific comment for all of us, any of us, out in this world who are dealing with this situation each and every day.
Because even though the statistics may be, in your favor, does that alleviate any of the fear or the apprehension that you have about your upcoming brain surgery?
No. I'm terrified.
So
I had a brain infection last time.
So let's kind of turn it on its side.
But I don't have a choice. I really don't have a choice. When it comes down to it, I don't really have any choices left.
Given the people that you know, and I don't want you to think of a single person, but if you could kind of put them into one kind of aggregate whole, if they or one of their children were facing the specter of brain surgery, or had some kind of illness that, was debilitating, that required hospitalization, how do you think they'd respond? And how do you think they'd feel?
Oh, they'd be terrified.
And
they'd be out of their heads and terrified.
And how do you think that this aggregate of friends would respond if you gave them the apparent lack of support that you've been on the receiving end of?
It's not so much lack of support. What
Are
I've
you
been
sure?
hearing, what I've been hearing is basically, well, you're so strong, you're such a strong person, and also, well, you have Rob.
Well, strength.
He'll be there with you. But that's me being a strong person doesn't mean that I'm not terrified, and doesn't mean that I don't need support, and it doesn't mean that because Rob is in my life now that all the work is his work and all the support goes to him. Rob is terrified too. And Rob is working his ass off taking care of Barb right now. And Rob is terrified too. So who looks after Rob? this is a common thing. You know, this isn't just.
So basically, they're saying that you have sort of like an inbuilt support system. So they the way it sounds to me is that they think that because you know you have this strength and you have your fiance's support, that that kind of takes the burden off of them, that they no longer have any kind of responsibility to you as a friend. Do you think that's a fair thing? Is that a fair assessment, generally speaking, I mean?
I think there's a lot of fear too. I think a lot of people are scared, so they just don't know how to handle it.
I don't really see what they have to be scared for, because they're not the ones that are facing surgery. I can understand them being scared for you, but when the end of the day comes, it's your life that's on the line, not theirs. Your surgery is not a problem for anybody else. It's not to equate the two, but it's like when you hear guys talk about, the women in their lives when they have premenstrual syndrome. They talk about it like it's a problem for them. Like a guy will meet up with his friends and he'll say, "Hey Joey, you look terrible. What's the matter?" The wife's got PMS again. "Oh, you poor guy, Joey. Come on, let me get you a beer." You know what I mean? They're on the
Nobody wants to talk about it, is what the problem is, except to make it clear. And see, the problem is with talking about things like this is there's always going to be people that misconstrue the information, and I have to make it very clear that there is very close friends who are always supportive of me and who are being very supportive. So I must make that very clear in this conversation so that people who are listening to this know, and you guys out there know who you are, and I love you to death. And
Let's hope it's not yours.
I just want to say that because, I mean, I had a beautiful message today from a friend that brought me to tears, and it just took me from here to here, and she know who she is. And it's things like that that it means the world to me. And I have people who are dealing with epilepsy who go through the same things that are very supportive. And I have my group, my rocks as I call them, and they know who they are. So let's make it very clear that I do have my friends. But there's the externals that it seems have floated away. And
Yes?
I'm just thinking, I'm lost for words right now because it's so hard to have a discussion like this and try and talk about it without making it sound like you're saying, "Oh, poor me, nobody supports me and nobody loves me and I feel sorry for myself," because that's not true. I do have a very tight internal support system of some very dear friends who are here for me all the time and support me in each and every way they can, and I love them to death. And I couldn't do it without them. But then there's also outside, who I also know love me, and who I also love to death too, but there's that barrier there because the understanding is that, or the misunderstanding has created a barrier. And because there's no communication, and because there's so much distance and, you know, time, and, you know, you don't spend time with people. You don't, the more time that goes by that you don't spend with people, you still, you know, you love them so much, but if you can't talk to them and be with them, it makes it really hard. And that's why I wanted to do these blogs, was because I want people to understand that me not being around, and me being not being there all the time, and me not being able to be there all the time like I used to be, it's not because I can't, or not because I don't want to be. It's not because I've changed. I'm still me. It's just I can't be there. But if you don't understand why, then you're going to have an improper misconception of the reasons.